Amend this bill to the House.
I call the honourable member Darian Fenton.
Thank you so much, Mr Chair. I've been dying to take a call on this, and I've been happy to defer to the members of the Select Committee who've done all the work on it, and of course congratulate the Minister and the Chair too for her commitment to the Smoke-Free Environments Controls and Enforcement Amendment Bill. Wonderful work that's going on, and Part 1 of the bill is the main part of the bill. And as the Speaker before talked about the purpose of it, which is to prohibit retail displays of tobacco products, and the aim is to gradually reduce tobacco uptake, particularly among young people, and to help smokers to quit. Just putting some context to this bill, though, as a former smoker, Mr Chair, if I may, and I will stick to Part 1 as much as I can, but I think it's really important to note, looking at this bill, how far we've come as a nation on the issue of smoking. As I said, I'm a former smoker, so I take a particular interest in Part 1, and I recall way back when Labor embarked on changes to smoking, particularly in the workplace. I would never have dreamed we'd get to the point where we would be able to agree in Part 1 that we could ban displays of tobacco advertising. And I remember the angst that went with that, but it did help me give up, actually. That was the time when I started to give up smoking, and I think all of these measures, and particularly adding to it, have helped smokers like me make the decision that smoking is not for me, of course with a bit of agitation from my family, from my husband and my son. But I also, Mr Chair, as others have done, just want to acknowledge my colleague Steve Chadwick for her work on this, and the member opposite says who. Well, I think that's very ignorant, actually. He should study history, because it was huge. There was huge angst about that. In fact, the National Party voted against Steve Chadwick's member's bill, as I recall, which was about banning smoking in restaurants and in workplaces. And I remember it, and the National Party voted against it. I remember the angst. I was involved in it because I was involved with union members that I was representing at the time in Sky City who made submissions on that, who said smoking is bad for us and it hurts. It was Steve Chadwick's bill, just in answer to that member. It was Steve Chadwick's bill. It was Steve Chadwick's bill during the last 9 years of the Labor government.
Point of order, the Honourable Rick Barker.
A member has made an interjection. I don't want to repeat it, but it clearly implies the member is telling a lie. It's unparliamentary and will bring disorder.
Yeah. The member's absolutely right. The member on my right will stand and withdraw. To infer that is incorrect and it's not permissible.
Withdraw.
Thank you.
As well, Mr Chairman.
Now, can I say that is trifling with the chair? I call the honourable member Darian Fenton.
Mr Chair, and just returning to Part 1, if I may, I think there's a very interesting lesson of history in Part 1, and particularly some of the... yes, happy to do that, Steve Chadwick. Steve, look, point of order, Mr Chair. Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, the honourable member
continues.
Order.
That member continues to interject on the same line that he has already withdrawn, and he continues on that line of saying that I am actually not telling the truth.
The member is entitled to have reasonable interjections, provided he's doing it from his own seat. If he moves to facilitate interjection, then he's out of order. This is a debating chamber. But I would add, members, it is not a public house. It is the debating chamber. I call the honourable member Darian Fenton.
I was saying, Mr Chair, that turning to Part 1 again of the bill, if the member would let me, and I hope he will take a call as a recent person that has given up smoking, but in Clause 5, I think the interpretation clause is a very interesting lesson in history, where the Section 2.1 is amended by repealing provisions and definitions of children's product pouch pack. Pouch pack. Now that brought quite a lot of memories back to me actually. Pouch pack, the days when, roll your own. And I remember a doctor actually, Minister, saying, that roll your owns and smoking tobacco in a pipe were actually better for you than smoking cigarettes. So it's good to see the pouch pack disappearing for this. The tobacconist shop too. Now it's a long time since I can recall a tobacconist shop. I was interested when I visited France a few years ago to see that they still have the tobacco shops, and they would argue that it's much more important to have a specialist shop, but I don't know of any such thing as a tobacconist shop anymore. And then we have the tobacco package that's being repealed, which is used to mean a box, carton, packet, pouch, tin, wrapping or other package that contains tobacco product or product. So I think, and tobacco packages, Mr Chair, packages an invisible stack. That means 2 or more tobacco packages. And so what this clause 5 in part 1 and the interpretation is demonstrating that things have changed a lot. While we've changed our smoking habits, and while this bill really contributes, I think, and builds on the work that's been done in the past, I think it also shows that we've come an awful long way in our products and the various ways that tobacco has been sold in the past. So it's good to see the pouch pack and tobacconist shop and tobacco packages.
Mr. Chair. There he is. Call the honourable